in cause number 2022-0D01689, State of Texas versus Christopher Torres. Announcement of council, please.
Javier Salcedo, Assistant District Attorney for the state, ready to proceed, Your Honor.
Jose Montes for Christopher Torres, we're ready, Your Honor.
And for our purposes today, Mr. Montes, we're set for a plea. Has your client waived his appearing in person for this plea?
Does, Your Honor.
Mr. Torres, is that correct? You're in agreement with conducting this plea remotely over Zoom?
Correct.
Okay, so we are scheduled, Mr. Torres, for a plea today, which means I need to ask you some questions. So I need to swear you in. Would you raise your right hand, please? Sir, do you swear or affirm that any testimony you provide will be the truth and the whole truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Torres, you can put your hand down. I'll also tell you, I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you. So if you'll speak a little bit louder so I can hear you, okay?
All right.
Thank you. Would you state your name and date of birth for the record?
Christopher Navarrete Torres, 7/29/1985.
Mr. Torres, as I mentioned, we're scheduled for a plea today. So there are documents you should have reviewed with your attorney, the first of which is marked as State's Exhibit number 1. Those are the plea papers in this case. Within that document, you're guaranteed certain rights, including the right to remain silent, the right to trial by jury, the right to counsel, the right to confront and cross-examine witnesses, and the right to call witnesses on your behalf and in your defense. Mr. Torres, do you recall reviewing that document with your attorney and signing it?
Yes.
Did you understand everything contained within that document?
Yes.
Mr. Montes, have you had more than 10 days to prepare a defense in this case?
I have, Your Honor.
And did you explain the plea papers to your client?
I did, Your Honor.
Do you believe he has understood the admonishments, rights, and consequences of giving up those rights by entering his plea today?
He does, Your Honor.
Mr. Torres, are you satisfied with your attorney's representation of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Montes, any reason to believe your client is not presently competent to enter his plea?
No reason, Your Honor.
Mr. Torres, have you ever been found incompetent, mentally incompetent by any court?
No, Your Honor.
Ever been examined by a doctor or psychiatrist who has found you mentally ill?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, so based on your testimony, your attorney's representations, and my observations of you, I'm going to find that you are competent to enter your plea today. Sir, are you a U.S. citizen?
Yes, Your Honor.
Where were you born?
Santa Ana, California.
Okay, sir. In this case, you are charged with the offense of possession of a controlled substance in penalty group 1 or 1B in an amount less than 1 gram, a state jail felony. To that charge, sir, what is your plea, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty, Your Honor.
Are you making your plea freely and voluntarily?
Yes, Your Honor.
I find you are making your plea freely and voluntarily. Mr. Salcedo, would you summarize the evidence, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Had the state proceeded to trial, the state would have proven beyond a reasonable doubt all the allegations contained in the indictment that on or about the 6th day of April, 2022, and anterior to the presentment of the indictment in the county of El Paso and state of Texas, Christopher Torres did then and there intentionally and knowingly possess a controlled substance, namely methamphetamine, including adulterants or dilutants in the amount of less than 1 gram. And at this time, we would offer to take exhibit number 1, which is the plea agreement, exhibit number 2, the Article 3914 disclosures.
No objection. No objection, Your Honor.
Without objection, stay 1 and 2 admitted. What is the plea agreement?
The recommendation from the state is 6 months confinement in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice State Jail Facility with no period of supervision with credit for time served.
Mr. Montes, is that your understanding of the plea agreement?
It is, Your Honor.
And Mr. Torres, is that your understanding as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, understand that the plea agreement is not binding on the court. However, if I were to reject it, I would allow you to withdraw your plea. If I follow the plea agreement, you may not appeal this case except on matters raised by written motion and ruled on before trial or by permission of the court. The next document I'm going to ask you about is the 1-page document entitled The Trial Court Certification of Your Right to Appeal. It is a 1-page document that explains your appeal rights. Because this is a plea, bargained, or negotiated case, you do not have an automatic right of appeal. Mr. Torres, do you recall reviewing the trial court certification with your attorney and signing that document?
Yes, Your Honor.
It was signed by your attorney, excuse me, and signed by the court as well. So on your plea of guilty and the evidence introduced, I will accept the plea and find that the evidence substantiates your guilt. We'll find you guilty of the offense of possession of a controlled substance in penalty group 1 in an amount 1 or 1B in an amount less than 1 gram. And I will sentence you according to the plea agreement to 6 months confinement in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice State Jail Facility. You will receive credit for any and all time that you have served. I don't know what the exact tally is, but at least as of the printing of my docket, it was 290 days. So we have a lot of time. Okay, anything else, Mr. Salcedo or Mr. Montes?
Yes, Your Honor. The only change that I'm going to make is on the plea agreement. I am updating the signature page to have Mr. Bill Hicks as the district attorney and my name on there, and I will be delivering that to the court in a couple of minutes.
Okay, so we'll just update the prosecutor's signature page, Mr. Montes.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anything further?
Nothing further.
Thank you. Good luck to you, Mr. Torres.
Thank you.
May I be excused, Your Honor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Montes.
Thank you, Judge.
Who's next?
Annex, may we have Gilbert Bautista?
Go ahead.
In cause number 2020-0D00002. State of Texas versus Gilbert Bautista. Announcement of council, please.
Javier Salcedo, Assistant District Attorney for the state, ready to proceed.
Brent Stevens for Mr. Bautista. We're ready, Your Honor.
And Mr. Bautista, do you recognize your client, Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Yes, Judge.
Okay, Mr. Bautista, is that you?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, I'm sorry. For some reason, the audio is not that good today. You can go ahead and put your mask back on. I just couldn't quite hear you. All righty. Mr. Bautista is appearing remotely from the jail annex as well. We are scheduled today for a probation status hearing. He's been in jail almost 2 weeks. Give me a second because I'm having a little bit of trouble opening this report. Carla, are you here on Mr. Bautista's case? Okay, there. Okay, sorry, I don't know what was happening with the computer. Let me see. I think I zoomed it way too much. Let me. Crazy. Okay. Oh, so he's just going to BHRTC?
We were here, Your Honor, on the 10th. We had a hearing
Uh-huh.
and bench warrant was ordered. And it was discussed that possibly residential treatment would be, at the time, Ms. Lujan is the officer that covered the hearing. She met with Mr. Bautista and he did, according to her notes, Mr. Bautista did agree to treatment.
Right, he had actually kind of requested it, right? We were all basically on the same page.
Yes.
Okay, so we need, I don't recall having received the mods on this one. Have we modified him already?
No, I believe we were gonna wait to see what happened on this date, to see if everybody, well, I'm including Mr. Stevens, if everything was in agreement. That way we can submit them to you.
Judge,
Yes, sir.
on the 10th, I was in court, and at that time, I heard the communications between yourself and Mr. Bautista, and we were appointed at the same time.
Correct, I remember.
At that time, it was my understanding that he had already agreed to BHRTC. The court had already agreed to BHRTC. So subsequently, I talked to Mr. Bautista to find out, just to make sure he understood and everything was finalized. Plus, he has 2 new misdemeanors,
Mhm.
which I'm now appointed to.
Okay,
But when I spoke to Mr. Bautista, he was really angry and upset and complaining that he's sitting in jail, wasting time, waiting to go to BHRTC. And he said he wanted to fire me because I'm not doing anything for him, although I've never had the chance to do anything for him at this time. So I emailed Ms. Pineda to find out for Mr. Bautista how long he would have to wait in jail before he would have bed space, and also So he would be able to make a decision whether or not he wants to agree to that or not.
Okay. So, Carla, I don't know if you have a good turnaround time. Mr. Bautista, the only reason that this wasn't just a bench warrant and then we'll just revoke your probation and send you off to something that is not treatment is because I was of the understanding when we met last time that you were in agreement and needed help. And the only way I'm allowed to get you help is through inpatient residential treatment at BHRTC. That requires that you be in custody to be transferred there. So if at this point you're thinking it's a waste of time, I'll allow Mr. Stevens some time, not today. We'll set you 30 days down the road and we can get things squared away. There is at least a 6-week wait period last I checked for BHRTC. And I completely understand if ultimately what you're going to come back and tell me is that you're not going to want to waste your time waiting for that treatment. And then we can explore another route. In the interim, you're going to be in jail and Mr. Stevens will know what to do. He can come back and ask for a bond and all of those things. Mr. Stevens is very diligent, which means he works his cases for his clients. So I have no doubt that if we are at some other agreement than BHRTC, that he will do what he needs to do. It doesn't sound like the discussions between you all have been conducive to a resolution. It sounds like you have been complaining to Mr. Stevens, and that really is just spinning wheels because it doesn't bother me any. You'll stay in jail.
I understand, Your Honor. I was mad at the time. I mean, I take full responsibility for what I said to Mr. Brent Stevens, but I do want to check the program, you know?
Mr. Stevens, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to wait 30 days. I'm going to set us for a 1-week probation status hearing to allow you the opportunity to have a thoughtful discussion with your client, and maybe your client can reflect on some of the things. If what you tell me in a week is that, no, not really, then we'll look at a number and we can go that route. If he wants to go to BHRTC, then we'll have, waited more time to get him modified and put on the waiting list. Okay, I'll give you a week.
Okay, thank you, Judge. I will go see Mr. Bautista and I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you very
And
much.
just so Mr. Stevens knows that if there is a modification to BHRTC, we will be looking at dismissing the misdemeanor cases so that way he can be transferred as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Saucedo.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We'll see you in a week.
Your Honor, if I may, on that note, before Mr. Stevens leaves,
Mhm.
Mr. Salcedo's note regarding the misdemeanors, we do have to have some kind of disposition on those misdemeanors before even if we modify him next week, but if those misdemeanors are still unresolved, he's going to be not considered on the waiting list until they're resolved. So the dismissal would be important if that's the route we're going, or some kind of pure bond on those misdemeanors.
Right, and that's why I'm asking that Mr. Stevens get in contact with me. If that's a decision that's going to be made, that he goes to BHRTC, we can get those dismissed and uploaded as soon as possible. As soon as Mr. Stevens lets me know, we'll get that done.
Mr. Bautista, we'll see you in 1 week.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
Judge.
Stevens. I appreciate you jumping in like that. I think he was someone you had represented before, right? And it rang a bell when you were here, so it was kind of like, tag, you're it. Okay.
I represented him on a previous revocation proceeding.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see where we are next week. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Judge.
Okay. Mr. Contreras, do we have Mr. Contreras today?
Yes, ma'am, but Mr. Underwood is still hasn't logged in. I called his office already. He
Is
wasn't-
this one?